In this video, I'm going to talk about some common everyday examples of pure substance and mixtures. So for example, the first part, you can see two different nails. The first nail here, this might be an iron nail. And an iron nail, if you zoom into an iron nail, which is what I've done here, so you can imagine this is zoomed in. Each of these atoms is an iron atom. So we say Fe, that's the chemical formula for iron. And this would be an example of a pure substance, because remember, they're all the same. So in this case, they're all iron. That means an iron nail would be a pure substance. They're all identical. But if we look at a rusty nail, which is the one on top, would a rusty nail still be a pure substance, or might it be a mixture? So if we zoom into a rusty nail, which is what I've done here, we see that these ones in gray would be still our iron, right? The one that we have in the actual iron nail. But you might see some rusty molecules as well. This here is rust, and that would be an example. It's called iron oxide, but iron oxide is the same as rust. Right? So in this case, this would actually be a mixture. So if we have a normal iron nail, that might be a pure substance, but as soon as it becomes rusty, there's going to be two different types of chemicals or substances found, and that makes it a mixture. Another example, a common everyday example of a mixture, would be the actual air, right? So this is an example of the air around us. You can imagine the air around us has different types of substances in it. So for example, the clouds are mostly H2O, and this is what's written here. H2O is obviously the common word for water, so it's got plenty of water in it. Also N2, nitrogen, which is nitrogen gas, so there's plenty of nitrogen gas in air as well. We also have O2, which would be an example of oxygen gas. So there's in the air we've got oxygen, nitrogen, and also carbon dioxide. So CO2 right here is carbon dioxide. So these are some common gases we find in air. And another one that we find sometimes, which can actually be a pollutant, is CH4, this one right here, and that is methane. Now methane is actually what basically a lot of animals fart. That's methane, and that can also be it stinks quite bad, and it can also be found in the air, right? But the reason why I'm saying all this is because these air, which looks like there's nothing in it, is actually an example of a mixture, because there are lots of different types of gases that can be found within the air. And these were some I mentioned earlier: oxygen, water, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and methane. Now, another example, a common everyday example of a mixture would be the soil, right? Because if you look at the soil, you find, if you were to zoom into the soil, you find lots of bacteria. The whole soil is polluted, or not polluted, but is full of bacteria. The bacteria are actually quite important for the soil. They help make it very fertile, which means that things can grow in the soil. We also find lots of water. Obviously, the actual plants need water, but a lot of things dissolve in water. So in any soil, you'll find water, you find bacteria. You also tend to find lots of minerals. Minerals are things that the soil or the plants need to grow. Minerals can be things like calcium, magnesium, nitrogen, phosphorus, right? So these are all important for plants to grow. And you obviously also find plant materials. So if you have any plants, that plant might die, and then we find that dead material from the plant in the soil itself. So soil would be another good example, an everyday common example of a mixture. Now the last quick one I want to go over is a really obvious one: humans. Humans are also an example of a mixture. Humans are mostly made out of water, so that's right here, but we also have lots of protein and fat, and things like calcium and phosphorus for our bones and teeth, things like sodium and potassium, or iron and magnesium. So basically, you can imagine a human being a mixture of all kinds of different types of substances. So these are just some common everyday examples of mixtures and substances, and what you should also know is that most things we actually find in nature are mixtures. There's very few examples of pure substances. They do exist. So for example, an iron nail is a pure substance, but most things we find in nature are mixtures.